תזכו לשנים רבות, נעימות וטובות, to the entire family and congregation of Bet Torah, ושהשם ישלח רפואה שלמה לכל חולה, עם ישראל. We are studying Masechet Avot, Aleph Yod. Let's read the Mishnah together. Let's talk about a little bit of the structure. We'll get into the details, and then we'll sum up again the structure at a whole. Kelal ufrat uchlal. Shemaya v'Abtalion. Of course, we're in the fourth generation of the Zugot period. Qibelu mehem. They received Torah from the previous generation. Shimon ben Shattah and Yehuda ben Tabbai. Shemaya omer ehov et hamelacha. Love work. Usna et rabbanut. You should despise rabbanut. Rabbanut here means imposing your dominion or will or control over others. Srara, a leader who appointed is a self-appointed leader who is noheg rabbanut, imposing his will on others. Ve'al titvada larashut, and do not be friendly or connected to the authorities. So we have over here, from a structural point of view, three statements, which is very popular in Pirke Abot, the structure of three. Let's understand each one in and of itself. Ehov et hamelacha. First of all, love work. Now, one great source in studying Masechet Avot is Avot Rabbi Natan. It's one of the, what we call Masechtot Ketanot, that you could find at the end of Masechet Avodah Zarah, on the back of the Gemariyot. And it's sort of an elaboration, different collections of Baraitot and words of the Hachamim. It's closest we have to a Gemara on Masechet Avot. And the Avot Rabbi Natan has a beautiful, elaborate explanation on this idea of Ehov et hamelacha. And I would basically sum it up as saying, if you really study the sources, melacha, work, is not only a means to an end. Melacha is a value in and of itself. And I recommend that you take a look in Avot Rabbi Natan. I'll give you just a point or two, a highlight or so. The Masechet Avot Rabbi Natan says, HaTorah nitena bivrit, kacha melacha nitena bivrit. Just like the Torah is a partnership between God and humanity, or the Jewish people, so too, melacha has this concept of berit shene'emar, ששת ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך ויום השבעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך. In other words, the purpose of humanity in this world is to cultivate and improve the world around us. Ehov et hamelacha. Melacha, the Torah doesn't just say on the seventh day rest from work. It says sheshet yamim ta'avod. So work is a central function of man in this world, to cultivate and improve the world. Ehov et hamelacha. In the continuation, I'm skipping so much in Avot Rabbi Natan because we only have a few minutes. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Af HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo ishra shechinato al Yisrael ad she'asu melacha, shene'emar va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his Shekhinah comes in this world when humanity engages in the process of labor and melacha and building the Mishkan. We built the Mishkan, and the Shekhinah, va'asu li mikdash, we worked, labors of building the Mishkan, and only afterwards, the Shachanti b'tocham, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Shekhinah comes into the world. It's a lot to talk about in this concept of Ehov et hamelacha. We once gave a class on it in the first minyan of Bet Torah. Continues the Mishnah, usna et harabbanut. Now, famous concept or quote, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The Hachamim thousands of years before this quote, the Hachamim were very, very sensitive to the ability of power to corrupt. And way before, Thomas Hobbes spoke about power as something valuable when it's a means to an end. But at the point that power becomes an end in and of itself, and a person who's in power is just trying to get more power, not using the power as an end or as a means to achieve and do good in this world, at that point, power is bad. And that is, I believe, the concept of snat rabbanut. You should despise this approach of taking power and srara and dominion and imposing it on other people. The Gemara Masechet Berachot speaks about it's Berachot Nun He Amud Aleph, HaManhig Asmo Berabbanut, an individual who conducts himself in a way in which he imposes upon other people his leadership. That's a very negative thing. Gemara speaks very ill of that, and that's the idea that's mentioned here, Usnat Rabbanut. The Maharsha in the Gemara Masechet Berachot says very, very beautifully that the language is manhig asmo berabbanut. Okay? It doesn't say hanoheg rabbanut. In other words, if a person was appointed by the people to be a leader, that's a very important role, and he should take that very importantly. But he should be noheg berabbanut. It's an important thing. But hamanhig atzmo, if he imposes his leadership on the people, that is a very dangerous and negative thing. Baruch Hashem, we have leaders who understand the function of leadership. The Gemara at the end of Masech Torayot says that Rabban Gamliel had to call his students a few times because they didn't want to take the position, and he turned to them, he said, why don't you want to take the position? Kim dumim atem sheserarani noten lachem. Do you think that I am giving you power to impose on other people? Avdut ani noten lachem. A true manhig understands this concept. What the Mishnah that we're studying is of senat rabbanut. Nobody should be a leader if he is just running after power and imposing upon the people, but rather he should be appointed by the people and understand that he is a public servant or servant of the tzibur. That's the idea of senat rabbanut. So if the first part of the Mishnah was melacha is not only a means to an end, melacha, work has a value in of itself, I would say the second part of the Mishnah of snat rabbanut is power is not something, an end in and of itself, but only limited in a means to an end, to doing good. Okay, and it has to be something that's accepted by the tzibur from the bottom up and not imposed from the top down. Finally, al titvada la rashut. Don't be too close to the government. In the time of this Mishnah was perhaps the Roman government, or maybe a little bit earlier in the Hellenistic time period. In any case, the Hachamim were very sensitive to the idea that power corrupts and the negative aspects of connecting too much to the government. I would say that the Hachamim had a nuanced view of the Rashut, the government, because if you take a look later on in the Mishnah in Perek Bet Gimel of Masech Avot, the Hachamim say, don't get too close. Hevu zehirim barashut, with the government. She'en mekarvin lo la'adam el l'sorach asman. They only come close to you because they need you, and they sort of will use you. Take a look at the Mishnah over there and throw you away. On the other hand, in Avot Perek Gimel, the Chachamim say over there, Heve mitpalel b'shloma shel malchut. You should pray for the well-being of the government. She'ilmale mora'ah ish yitra'eu hayim belav. If it wasn't for a government that puts order in the world, okay, or in the country, one person would swallow up the next. So I think the Chachamim express very nicely and beautifully the balance between the need for a government to have order and security on one hand, and on the other hand, the danger in government having too much power. Okay, maybe it's sort of similar to the idea of the social covenant, between a balance between the power of the government to giving security to the people, but the government not overstepping. So finally, let's just review. Ehovet HaMelacha, Senat HaRabbanut, Ve'al Titvada' LaRashut. In the Perush of Rabbi Ovadia Mibartenura, he connects very nicely these three concepts. He writes, Usnat HaRabbanut, Ve'al Tomar Adam Gadol Ani Ugnai Li La'asok B'Melacha. Well, you should love work, and not, in contrast to that, you shouldn't try and put yourself in a leadership position just to impose your will on others and not engage in melacha. And similarly, al titvada l'rashut, you shouldn't try and get close to the government in order to get an appointment of imposition of your will on the people. Kedei litor rabbanut al yadeha. So the three very nicely connect together. Let's move on. We don't have much time, to the next Mishnah. Avtalion Omer Chachamim Hizaharu b'dibrechem. Chachamim, be very, very particular and careful with your words. Shemeh tahovu hovat galut. Perhaps you'll end up being obligated to go to a other place, a foreign place. V'tiglu limkom mayim hara'im, and you'll end up being sent to the place of the bad waters. V'yishtu hatalmidim habayim acharechem v'yamutu, and the students who come with you will end up drinking these bad waters and die. V'nimsa Hashem shamayim mithalel, and this will cause a hilul Hashem. Wow, this is a cryptic and difficult, seems, Mishnah. And I want to express to you two approaches to the words of the Mishnah. What does it mean, Chachamim hizaru b'dibrechem? Be very particular with your words. Well, one approach, this seems to be the approach of Rambam, Rabbi Ovadia Mibartenura, is if you are a Hacham and you are teaching Torah or giving Hora'ah, giving rulings, be very careful with your words. Be careful not only with what your intention is, but you have to look ahead and see how might people misunderstand your words and maybe interpret it in ways that you did not intend. Therefore, you must be extremely clear in the way that you teach, in the way that you explain, so that people don't misunderstand. Now, shemet tahovu hovat galut, because maybe not connected to your poor wording in your teaching, maybe everything's nice and fine when you're in your place of Torah and the people around you all understand what you mean in your arba'amot shel halacha, but you might find yourself in different places, and you might find yourself in a place where there's mayim ra'im. Rambam explains that this is an allegory for minut, for bad ways of thinking or heresy or different types of thinking that are not in the way of Torah. And those people, those same words that when you were in your home turf were understood by everybody, they might be misunderstood in that place that you ended up, in the place of the Mayim Ara'im. And students will now say, well, look, the Hacham said those words, and those people of the Mayim Ra'im are interpreting them in a negative way. And this is a way of Hilul Hashem, or this causes Hilul Hashem. Now, Rambam mentions that this is what happened he quotes really he's referring to what's brought down in Avot Rabbi Natan, that Antigonus Ish Socho, we learned about earlier in the Mishnah Gimel, who says, Al tiyu ka'avadim hamshameshim et harav, his students were Sadok and Baitos, and they misunderstood his words in a way that Has v'Halila, there's no Sachar v'Onesh, because he said, don't do it for the reward. Oh, there must be no reward. That's the way they misunderstood his words. And from this came the Sidukim and the Baitosim. It's kedai to look at the things inside. We have very limited time. One last thought on this Mishnah, or approach to this Mishnah. Perhaps we could read the Mishnah in the light of what we spoke about in the previous halacha of the Rashut, the government. And that is, Hachamim izaru b'divrachem. Be careful. We have a lot of stories in the Gemara of Hachamim who spoke in a way that wasn't necessarily wise vis-a-vis the authorities, the government. And as a result, according to this approach, that will cause you to flee from the government. Like we have a story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who had to run away and hide from the government. So, but in contrast to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that good things came from that, okay? Hachamim izaru b'divrachem, because as a result of you speaking ill of the government, you might have to flee. You might have to run away. Shemet tahuvu chovat galut. Over here, there's a causality between the two, according to this approach. And then you'll end up in a place of Ma'im Ra'im where there's no Torah, and the students will come with you to galut, and they will be influenced by these negative place that you end up going. So, in other words, the bottom line is, Hachamim izaru b'divrachem, whether it's within the context of Torah, we should be particularly careful on how we teach and how we speak, or whether it's within the realm of politics. If a Hacham is speaking regarding politics, be very, very careful. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should continue to study and prepare ourselves for the upcoming Shavuot. And I hope to see everybody, Be'ezrat Hashem, as soon as possible, back in the Knis. Kol Shanim Rabot Naimot V'Tovot.